What if I told you that the friendships you've built, the warmth you received as a child, and the communities you've joined are doing something remarkable inside your cells right now? Not metaphorically. Literally. New research from Cornell University suggests that social connection doesn't just feel good, it may actually slow the biological machinery of aging itself. This is the psychology of people, and today we're examining what might be one of the most profound discoveries about human health in decades. Think about your oldest friend. The one who knew you before you became who you are now. That relationship isn't just a source of comfort. According to this research, it's functioning more like a retirement account, one where every year of connection compounds into biological dividends your cells are collecting right now. And here's what caught my attention. It's not just about how connected you are today. It's about the accumulated weight of every meaningful relationship across your entire life. To understand why this matters, we need to talk about how scientists actually measure aging. Not the wrinkles and gray hair kind. The cellular kind. The cellular kind. Your chronological age, the number of candles on your birthday cake, tells one story. But your biological age can tell a completely different one. Researchers have developed what they call epigenetic clocks. These are molecular markers that assess how quickly your cells are aging relative to your actual years. Two of the most sophisticated clocks have evocative names: GrimAge and DunedinPACE. They measure chemical modifications to your DNA that accumulate over time. When these clocks show you're biologically older than your chronological age, that's associated with higher risks of disease and earlier mortality. When they show you're younger, the opposite. For years, researchers have known that things like exercise, diet, and stress affect these biological aging markers. But what about something less tangible? What about relationships? This is where the Cornell research becomes remarkable. The team, led by Professor Anthony Ong, drew on data from over 2,100 adults who had been tracked across multiple decades. The data came from the Midlife in the United States study, known as MIDUS, which has been following participants since 1995. That's nearly 3 decades of social and biological information. What Ong's team wanted to know: does social connection across a lifetime leave a measurable imprint on these molecular clocks? The answer was striking. People with sustained social networks showed significantly younger epigenetic aging profiles on both GrimAge and DunedinPACE molecular clocks. But the researchers didn't just look at aging clocks. They also measured inflammation, specifically a molecule called interleukin-6. This is where the findings got even more interesting. Interleukin-6 is a pro-inflammatory molecule. When levels stay elevated over time, it's linked to some of the diseases we fear most: heart disease, diabetes, and neurodegeneration. The socially connected participants showed measurably lower levels of this inflammatory marker. Their bodies were running cooler, biologically speaking. Less inflamed, less stressed at the cellular level. Here's the crucial insight that separates this research from simpler studies. The team didn't just ask, "Are you connected now?" They asked, "Have you been connected throughout your life?" They identified 4 dimensions of what they called cumulative social advantage. The first, parental warmth in childhood. Did your caregivers make you feel valued and supported? The second dimension, community connection. Have you felt embedded in a larger social fabric? A neighborhood, a town, a group where you belonged? Third, religious or spiritual involvement. Regular participation in faith communities or contemplative practices with others. And fourth, ongoing emotional support from friends and family. The knowledge that someone has your back, consistently, across the years. Each of these dimensions contributed to a person's cumulative social advantage. And here's the key: they accumulated. Like deposits in a bank account, each year of connection added to the total. Professor Ong put it this way: think of social connections like a retirement account. The earlier you start investing, and the more consistently you contribute, the greater your returns. This compound interest metaphor isn't just poetic. The research showed that accumulated social advantage was specifically associated with long-term biological patterns, not short-term stress fluctuations. The team found no significant associations with cortisol, the stress hormone that rises and falls with daily pressures. This was about something deeper, more structural in the body. Another inflammatory marker, C-reactive protein, showed similar patterns. This biomarker of systemic inflammation is consistently elevated in socially isolated individuals. Now, you might wonder, is this really about connection? Or do healthier people simply have an easier time maintaining relationships? This is the causality question that haunts epidemiological research. And to be fair, it can't be definitively answered without experiments that would be unethical to conduct. But the longitudinal design of this study strengthens the case for causation. By tracking people across decades, researchers could see that early social advantages predicted later biological outcomes. And the broader research literature is sobering. Meta-analyses have found that social isolation or loneliness is associated with a 50% increased risk of dementia. The same analyses found a 30% increased risk of coronary artery disease or stroke among the socially isolated. And perhaps most strikingly, a 26% increased risk of all-cause mortality. Loneliness, it seems, is a mortality risk comparable to obesity or smoking. The National Institute on Aging has specifically flagged social isolation as a health risk for older adults. But the Cornell research suggests the pattern starts much earlier. Remember that first dimension, parental warmth in childhood? Those early experiences of connection or disconnection may echo across a lifetime at the molecular level. This aligns with what researchers call the weathering hypothesis, the idea that social experiences accumulate over time with biological consequences, for better or for worse. Just as a cliff face shows the marks of decades of wind and rain, our cells carry the signatures of decades of social experience. The researchers summarized it this way: the cumulative effect of social advantages across a lifetime may slow the biological processes of aging itself. Now, there are important caveats to hold alongside these findings. Let's acknowledge them honestly. The study included religious community involvement as one of its 4 dimensions. For secular individuals, this particular pathway may not apply in the same way. Some scholars worry that emphasizing individual social connection could shift focus away from structural factors that create isolation: poverty, disability, discrimination, cultural barriers. Telling lonely people that loneliness is killing them faster isn't particularly helpful if we don't also address why they became isolated in the first place. These are valid concerns, and yet the research also offers something hopeful that we shouldn't overlook. The data suggests that adult relationships still contribute to cumulative social advantage. If your childhood wasn't warm, your story isn't finished. Every friendship formed, every community joined, every moment of genuine connection adds to that invisible account balance. So what can we actually do with this knowledge? Let me offer some thoughts, not as prescriptions, but as invitations to reflection. Consider relationship maintenance as a health behavior. We schedule exercise. We plan meals. Perhaps our social connections deserve the same intentionality. The research suggests consistency matters more than intensity. A regular coffee with a friend may do more than occasional grand gestures. Second, think about community involvement as something analogous to nutrition or exercise. Not everyone finds meaning in religious community, but secular equivalents exist. Book clubs, volunteer organizations, hobby groups, running clubs, any consistent gathering where you're recognized and valued as a regular presence. Third, if you're caring for aging parents or grandparents, recognize that protecting their social connections isn't just about their happiness, it may be about their health. Helping an older adult maintain their friendships and community ties isn't a luxury. The research suggests it may be as important as managing their medications. Fourth, be patient with yourself if making connections feels difficult. Social skills can be rebuilt. Isolation isn't a permanent sentence. And remember, quality matters more than quantity. Deep connection with a few people likely outweighs superficial contact with many. Consider checking on the people in your life who might be quietly isolated. Your phone call might be more valuable than you realize. You're not just offering companionship. You may be contributing to their biological health account in ways neither of you can see. I want to return to something Professor Ong said, because I think it captures why this research matters beyond the numbers. The earlier you start investing, and the more consistently you contribute, the greater your returns. This isn't just about health. It's about how we structure our lives. In a culture that often celebrates independence and self-sufficiency, this research gently reminds us that we are fundamentally social creatures. Our bodies evolved in tribes and communities, and they still carry that legacy in their deepest cellular mechanisms. When we neglect our social connections, whether by choice, circumstance, or the drift of busy lives, something in our biology seems to register the absence. And when we nurture those connections, consistently, across the years, our cells seem to respond. Inflammation quiets. The molecular clocks tick a little slower. Perhaps the most profound takeaway is also the simplest. The time you spend with people who matter, really being present with them, isn't time away from your health. It might be one of the most important investments in your health you can make. Compound interest, measured in years of better aging. Thank you for spending this time with the psychology of people. If this episode made you think about someone you've been meaning to call, maybe that's your next step. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other.